Hey guys, I just wanted to make this super quick video about hiring a growth hacker. So there's a lot of demand on hiring growth hackers right now, and I get bombarded with emails, questions, inquiries, all about how to hire a growth hacker. And there's a few things that I want to educate people on as just background to understand growth hacking and how to hire growth hackers, because it's really important for background. Number one, we did a study that was collectively done by a few people in the industry. We didn't do it alone, of course. We found that almost about 2 years ago, there was about 5,000 globally, the 5,000 growth hackers. And that number sounds quite surprising because it doesn't sound like very much. And technically, it actually isn't very much for an industry or a practice. And recently, it's exploded. We haven't done a new number, but I would suspect that it would still not exceed about double that amount, which still sounds very small. And the reality is that the growth community and those who are actual growth hackers are actually a very small community. There are actually not very many of them around. And in Silicon Valley, it's very famously been said by several CEOs or founders of companies where they say it's more difficult to hire a growth hacker than it is to hire a CEO for a company in Silicon Valley. And it's actually true. We've been in discussions with several recruitment firms who've actually put numbers around the demand, some really large numbers around the demand of growth hackers that will be needed. And we can see this demand building up really big. Now, there's a few things I want to point out to you. Here's where the problems are, okay? Growth marketing, or taking some kind of a function and putting the word growth after platform growth person, community growth person, whatever you want to call it. That's actually not doing you a favor at all. In fact, in my world, when I work with my clients and my contenders in the challenge, there is no such thing as a growth marketer. And the reason being is that growth, and if you've been to some of my talks or some of my training, there's a science behind growth. And where growth hacking is right now is it's in third evolution, and that is what we call cross-functional growth hacking. And ultimately, the organizations that use this the best, which are unicorns, 98% of unicorns use growth hacking and the sciences of growth at the core of their business, versus Fortune 1000s, it's about 1.5% of them. You can count them on your hands. At least the last time this was actually calculated, 21% for startups and 11% or slightly less than that for corporates. So as you can see, that the practice itself is very highly refined to a very narrow type of companies. And there's a very specific reason for this. And one of the reasons is that they understood very quickly that growth hacking is not a growth marketer. I've been asked this question a billion times, and that's why I'm going to address this in the form of a video. And so there's a lot of people in the marketing space, especially in the marketing space, who are tackling growth hacking, and they're obviously positioning themselves as growth hackers, but ultimately they're just marketers. And the point that I'm getting at here is when we look at cross-functional growth hacking, it's way beyond marketing. So for example, let's say you put all your time, resources, and effort into into marketing, and you hire a growth marketer. And what happens is you put all your resources in there, and then all of a sudden you recognize that your customer service is behind, or sales is behind, or some other function is not working in conjunction with that growth hack, and you'll be unable to scale. So too often, one of the biggest failure points in growth hacking is short-sightedness, right? And perfect example is when people contact and say, I just want more leads, or I want to better optimize the inward traffic, or I want more traffic, or we want to get more visibility. And these are great measures, and I'm really happy when people have identified these things, but they're extremely narrow in the sense of the short-term goal. They don't have the bigger picture in place. And you need to be able to stitch all that together, because if you're unable to put that bigger picture together, then in reality, you're not going to do very well. So in my book here, in Ready, Set, Growth Hack, for those who've read it will already know this, but those who haven't, we talk about the growth cycle. And in the growth cycle, and we had an interesting talk in one of my recent keynotes, in the very last part of the growth cycle. So you can do okay and then get a lot better, and then you get to the very last part, which is called full-scale operations, and you fail. And 90+% of failure happens at that point. And by the time you reach that point, you're so confident because you've automated, you've scaled, and now you're out there, you're pumping, and you're putting a lot of hope and effort into this one area, and then all of a sudden it stops working. It literally just kind of stops working, and then people get stunned. They don't know what's happened. They kind of need to figure it out. And this is the biggest failure point. Where I see this prominently is in B2B SaaS business models. This is where we've seen this happen. I mean, it happens across the board, but it's very potent in that space. So the reason that happens is because the vision that you have at the very beginning is extremely narrow. You go into this tunnel vision where I need a growth marketer, or I just need this one kind of just narrow skilled individual who can just do those few things just so I can get my leads up or get my convert those leads a lot better. And those are all important things. You got to do those things, but you got to be able to see the whole picture. So in the blueprint that I teach people on, and the ones I work with my clients, we look at the full spectrum because ultimately what we're looking for, and you can go to some other videos to watch about this, it's called growth on cocaine. You know, what we're avoiding is like these spikes, right? And these spikes are really, really dangerous. And ultimately that's what people are looking for. I want more leads. Boom, they're looking for a spike. You know, I want to optimize those conversions. They're looking so short-term for those spikes. They don't realize the long-term consequences. And by the time they get there, it's way too late. So I step back. I want people to kind of understand when you're looking for a growth or growth hacker, you need to start from the top down. That's tip number one. It's not about hiring somebody who is a junior or mid-level individual who can just get that stuff done and put the word growth in front of it. No, that's not what you need. You need to start from the very top. So one of the measures we use is we look at strategy, structure, and talent. And the problem is that most organizations will go for talent, then structure, then strategy. It's actually the other way around. You need to have the strategy, then the structure, and then the talent. And the reason being is you can go hire the best talent out there, but if you don't have the right structure or the right strategy, it's not going to work. And huge, huge failure happens in this space. So if there's anything that I'm going to leave you with in this video, is that I want you to think in that format, in that exact sequence: strategy, structure, and then the talent. You need the right people for growth at the very top. The ultimate person that owns growth, or the ultimate growth hacker, is the principal business owner, him or herself. Okay, that is, it could be classified under any name: CEO, chairman, co-founder, founder. I don't care what the title is, as long as it is the principal business owner. The reason being is nobody's going to really care about your growth more than you as the principal business owner. That doesn't mean that you cannot hire people to help you do it or outsource some components of it. But the point though is when you rely on it like a crutch, you will not grow. And we see this happen over and over and over again. Because this is a new discipline, a lot of people are trying to learn and move on to the next better job. And you don't want to be part of that. What you want to be part of is you want to build a growth culture with a mindset at the center of it, that growth is the exact target you want everybody to go towards. Now, as raw as that might sound, there's a whole bunch of stuff I talk about in my second book right here, which is about the growth mindset and the 14 habits you need to build, not just as an individual, but habits you can build as part of your corporate culture in order to ensure a healthy growth culture and environment within your organization. So those are just kind of some of the things. I just wanted to get that out there because I'm bombarded with a ton of messages. Hey, I'm looking for a growth hacker. I need to hire a growth hacker. You know, and when I take a closer look at it, it's all the same scenario. So I'm addressing this in a way where I can scale answering the question. Obviously, this is just a starting point for you to learn and understand. There's obviously a lot more to this, but just step back. I want you to think of those three things, which is your strategy, structure, and talent. And when it comes to your strategy, you need to get the right people at the highest level possible who can help you put in the structures and then obtain the talent. Getting really talented people when there's a poor structure and no clear strategy is obviously a waste of time and money, both for you and that talent. But when you got the right strategy, structure, and you get the right people in place, is a completely different story. The whole equation works.